What's up, everybody? Welcome back to Journeyman, brought to you by the great folks at the DraftKings Network and Meadowlark Media. As always, I am your host, 7-year NFL veteran journeyman Andrew Hawkins, and today I'm joined by college football writer, television personality, and 8-hour veteran of working with me. Mr. Spencer Hall is in the building. Spencer, how you doing today, man?
I'm doing well. By working with you for a continuous 8 hours on draft day, you and
Yes,
I think have spent more time than you've spent with some of your NFL teammates. I think that's true. Like if
absolutely.
you add it up.
That is that is an actual fact. We put more hours of work together than a lot of my NFL teammates. And
Mm-hmm.
it wasn't because of them, it was because of me bouncing around. You know what's funny about this show being journeyman? Because in
Hmm.
sports, I'm a journeyman, but in real life, I am not. I have barely gone anywhere. Coincidentally, I am in a hotel room right now in Atlanta, where you actually are. We're probably as close as we've ever been since we've actually met in person.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm on my way to Europe and doing a whole Europe trip, going to Spain, going to France, going to London. Yeah, bouncing around, man. So I'm pretty excited about that.
Okay, so this is where I gotta crack down. Okay, one, who
Okay.
you flying? What airline?
Uh, I bounce around. I have no loyalty, so I'm going out there on Delta. I think I'm coming back on Air France.
Okay, we're going to stop at Delta. That's a future sponsor for this program. Andrew Hawkins, Delta, the official sponsor of Journeyman. There we go. First of all, we're making money for you. Second, that's an excellent choice. The Sky Miles program, enroll. It's really good. Second of all, what are you looking forward to most? Okay, not that you need to have goals when you go on a vacation. I
Right.
don't think you need that. Okay, I think you need to be open to the spontaneity of things. But I know there are certain things that when you travel,
Uh huh.
you're looking forward to more than other people might. So, what are you there to see?
You know what? You know what the problem with me is, Spence, and this is probably
Hmm.
why I've never really traveled, is I don't look forward to anything. I'm not
Okay.
like I want to see this. The thing I'm looking forward to most, I think, is the ability to come home and say, I did these things,
Okay.
which is not a good reason to travel, though, right?
No, but you have a secret. Listen, you have something built in there that you're not anticipating, which is you say, "Oh, I'm not looking forward to anything."
Mm-hmm.
Hawk, this is good because you can be surprised. If you have
Yes.
like the best experiences in life are ones where I've gone in and had absolutely no expectations. Like
Mm.
best concert I ever went to was Garth Brooks because I walked in the door with free tickets and had no expectations whatsoever and I left like oh my god, that man is the greatest entertainer alive, right? Like if you go to a big show, it's always going to be disappointing, right?
Yep.
But like
Yep.
it's just it can't possibly live up to your expectations. If you go to a place and you have no expectations, something's going to surprise you. Like you're going to go to Barcelona, and I guarantee you're going to see one thing where you go, "Hey, that's cool. We don't do that here, in the United States.
Yep.
That's awesome." So I will stop there. Just
Yeah.
you can be surprised, have no expectations, and get ready to pay for water.
What if
That's
you have
the one thing people
bad
complain about.
expectations?
Hmm.
Is that how does that work? Because that's another part. Like, and I'll give you this, Spence, as a Black
Mm-hmm.
American man,
Oh,
you go to European countries or places. I'm always like, I don't want to go somewhere. I don't want to pay money to get pissed off or be treated a certain. You know what I'm saying? So
yes.
that's a
From
that's a thing. That's another
from
part of the reason why I'm like hey, travel. I'll get to it when I get to it.
this is why I think, by the way, that white Americans should go to some place where they're in the minority 100% and not even in the plurality. Because I'm not saying you get exposed to racism because racism implies some sort of historical counterweight or historical oppression,
Right.
right?
Right.
That's not what happens to you if you're a white American abroad, but you should be the only one in the room at one point.
At
It's
one
a
point.
fascinating experience. Like if you go to China, go to some place where they do not speak where they do not speak English and where you're going to be like one or two white people in town. It is a very eye-opening experience. I highly endorse it.
Dang.
Yeah, especially if you
That's
have a big beard. If you have a big beard, it's a great experience.
that's nuance because that I can't I live that experience all the time. And it's
Mm-hmm.
like I
Yeah,
never
see,
even think to think that, man,
mm-hmm.
certain people have no idea what that feels like to
None.
be the only one of something in a room.
Yeah, you should walk in and have somebody just point at your face and be like, "What is up?" Like that's like
Why?
like like I
Why are
that's
you you?
that's like I traveled when I was younger. I traveled through rural parts of rural China, and it's great when somebody just walks up to you and they go like they just point at you and they're like, "What's up with this? What is
Speak
what is going on with any of this?"
That's a perfect segue into our first topic. When someone points at you and asks, what's going on with this? Because Zion Williamson, the New Orleans Pelicans, he says his eating habits, which have been the discussion of plenty of sports shows, obviously a lot going on with Zion as of recent, but he said that his eating woes are a product of the people that he's around, his entourage, the folks that he came up with. They did not help him develop good eating habits. And then he gets all this money, and it's just very, very hard for him. So, Spencer, what do you make of Zion coming out and saying basically like, yo, it's my friend's fault why I have an eating problem?
I mean, he's not wrong, because I don't know if you can think back to being that age. Nobody had a diet. Nobody really considered what they were eating. They just did it. So, and additionally, too, these are questions that, like, it sucks that he's got to answer this. I know that it's a legitimate question between him and his employer. And I know it's something that fans could be interested in because Zion is on the heavy side. And unfortunately, Zion, if he has a crew full of people who get the stuffed crust pizza every time they order DoorDash, right? Like, if that's the case, then yeah, that's going to be an issue. It's probably a factor. It's not the factor. It's not the factor is this. Genetically, Zion's big. Zion was born to be big, right? Big. Well, not just a big dude, right? Like, he is a big dude who is not a hard gainer. Hawk, you at your playing weight, you were what, 165, 170?
About 175-ish.
Okay, and that's football weight. That's
football, yeah.
Burst and lifting, right? You were and you were eating to stay at that weight, correct?
Yeah. For early on.
Early on.
Yeah.
Later on, that's not a problem. Later on, it's just going to stay there. But he's not a hard gainer. In other words, if he looks at a sandwich, he's going to gain 3 pounds. Like, that's just the kind of metabolism he's got. And as he gets older, that's only going to get harder for him. Now, and that's something that, like, as a basketball player, we say, okay, well, who had the solution to that? Bron. Okay, LeBron. LeBron at one point was, I swear, 270. Like when he was in Miami and he was Big Bron, which, by the way, is the coolest LeBron, is Big Bron, like Megatron Bron, when he is huge and dunking over people's heads. And Tristan Thompson is like, it doesn't make sense. He eats like 8 pieces of French toast and he goes out there and dunks on you. That's the coolest Bron. And they're like, oh, Bron solved it. Well, first of all, Bron paid to solve it. So if Zion wants to,
he has the money though. But Zion did say he's going to start following the LeBron blueprint. So that's a perfect example.
Does that seem like a good idea to you, to say, oh, I'm going to do what LeBron James did? That's kind of like being like, oh, I'll just do the genius thing. I'll just do the mutant thing. It doesn't seem like a good idea to me, because what works for him isn't necessarily going to be what works for you. When you talk about athletes who have had like the full body transformation, they've all done something a little bit different to get there. And, like, Zion should lock into one different thing. I say this as somebody who, man, I've struggled with weight. It's hard. It is like, and frankly, the answer for him might be something very uncomfortable. Like, you don't get to eat that much. Like, if you want to make this money and you want to play out a certain weight, it might be kind of miserable there for a minute. It really might, until you fully acclimate to your new lifestyle. Then again, it might be something simple. It might be like, you remember Lendell White? Lendell White was like, yeah, I lost 40 pounds because I stopped drinking a bottle of tequila a day. Okay, cool. I hope it's something that simple. I hope it's like, I don't eat beignets anymore. That would be great if that were the answer for him. But point being, if it's his friends, he's got to change that. And that would go for food. That would go for drugs. That would go for attention, right? Like, I don't know. What if y'all are just staying up too late playing 2K? That happens, right? That happens to people much older than him. But he's got to change it. There's like so much money riding on it, and he's got so much talent. I think we've forgotten that. I think we've forgotten how really good at basketball he is and what a unique talent he is, because he's in a team in a market where he's just not that. Like, there's not a whole lot of cameras on him.
So many things. Number one, New Orleans is a terrible place to have a food problem.
Oh, the worst,
That's
man.
Like, it's bad. It's like, living in Atlanta and you have a stripper problem. That's a terrible place for food. That's number one.
Atlanta has stripper solutions. That's what Atlanta has. Atlanta has stripper solutions.
Absolutely. Number two, I am a huge proponent of blaming the shortcomings that I'm responsible for on my friends. That's number one. Like, but I should say, I mean, your point is absolutely right, and I get everything you're saying, especially from like, that's a very understanding and empathetic fan perspective. But I will tell you, if you're getting paid $200 million, yes, it's not like yo, man, yeah, I should get on top of this. No, it's in the job description. This is that's why it's a problem. It's literally the contract. It's why we pay you the money. It's like everything revolves around this. And it's not so much you have to get on the exact LeBron plan, but as an athlete, I can tell you, we all understand and know what comes along with that. You got to figure it out for yourself because you are your own, CEO of your business. Every athlete is an entrepreneur. That's why they all go into their own business, because your job is to make sure the business of Zion Williamson is in tip-top shape. And that's the people around you. That's your entourage. Those are essentially like your employees, the people that are encouraging you and putting you in a position for the business to grow. And if that's not the case, then they need to be fired, like any business. So, and I also think, to your point about his age, for athletes, it's funny because it's such a relatable topic to like normal, everyday people. For forever, athletes, we are not the same as normal people. Like, you feel that way, and the way that your metabolism works and the way you bounce back, what you can do. But there is a point for every single athlete where, I won't call it kryptonite, but you start turning back into a regular human. And it happens. Honestly, it's half the problem with Russell Wilson. That's my theory on last year. Russell Wilson is he got fat, to keep it plain and simple. And it's hard to it's hard to operate at the level you need to when you have too much weight on. And he was heavy last year, and he's leaner this year. And I bet you I would put money on a Russell Wilson bounce back year, and in part because of Sean Payton, but also because there's just a different level of health, a different level of training that you have to get into as you get older. It happened for me as well when my second year in the NFL, but it was like my 5th year out of college. I came back to OTAs, and I was a person, to your point, that had like 3-4% body fat. Yeah. And there was an off season. I could eat whatever I want. I always did. I came back and I had 11% body fat. To have 11% body fat at 175 pounds is crazy. And so that was like an eye opener for me, because I was slow. I couldn't get off the line of scrimmage. I wasn't as quick. And there were so many issues that came along with it. And I think for Zion, it's like that crossing the bridge point where it's like, okay, yo, you're a professional. You're not a phenom anymore. It's not about potential. Like, in order to make this happen, you're in control of it, and you need to, do what's necessary to put your business, and subsequently our business as the NBA or the New Orleans Pelicans, in the best position to succeed.
Hawk, that's amazing, because you just pointed out something I hadn't thought about. If that's true, Russell Wilson's like the only fat person in Colorado. He's the only one. That's if he's fat for his position, he is a pioneer.
He is a pioneer.
That's a fit state.
That is, man. He's an implant, though. He's not an original. That's
they had to pipe him in. They're like, we need one.
He's got to get used to it. All right, we're gonna take a break, and we're gonna get right back into some more NBA news. All right, Spencer, we got some more weird things from the NBA. Grizzly star Jaren Jackson, he shared that he improved as a defender by playing NBA 2K. The quote was, "You got to want it a little bit. It takes a lot of endurance to play both ends, especially if you have responsibilities on offense. You got to want to stop your defender as bad as he wants to score. When it comes to timing and stuff, I've always said my timing came from 2K, playing a lot of 2K. Now, Spencer, I want to give my position here. I want to ask you what your thoughts on this. But I'm going to tell you out the gate that I'm calling cap. But what do you feel like? Do you feel like this is legit?
I will say this. As an athlete, if you think it works, it works. That's it. Magical thinking is real. If you go and you say, hey, I'm going to blow 2.5 hours playing 2K, but it's making me better, then guess what? Marginally, that has to be true. So I can't say that it doesn't. I would say that, and this is, by the way, complete junk science. Everything out of my mouth is junk science, but I think it's probably true. Okay.
Okay.
All right. Like 2%, like probably like 98% reliability on this. Simulation works. So if you're running this, right, and you are running a simulation over and over again, and you are running it with somebody who plays a lot like you against a defense you might see in the NBA, and the timing is pretty well rendered, well, this is what F1 drivers do in their spare time. They race a sim. They race really good sims that you don't get to race because they're super expensive,
Right.
but they know the track before they ever see it because they saw it on the sim. I'm not saying it has the same reliability. 2K is a mass market product that any moron can pick up with a credit card and the will to do it. But I think it is slightly true. How's that? It is slightly
true.
Slightly true.
Okay, this is a perfect timing for a shameless plug for my company, Status Pro, which is a award-winning game company. We make NFL Pro Era, which is a VR video game, and very similar to those sims you're talking about. It's from first person, right? So
okay,
in our game, you can see the NFL game and play quarterback from a first person perspective, where yes, it does feel like that. I would say from the broadcast view that NBA 2K is, and I'm not in the NBA.
Yeah,
I would say that is cap. And
okay.
I think this is either him trying to get the cover of NBA 2K, or maybe he's trying to get an endorsement, or maybe he just wants a couple free copies, because this doesn't seem like it works. But to your point about athletes, there is like this weird thing where you will trick your mind into believing that it makes you better. And it reminds me of like Tua doing Brazilian jiu-jitsu to stop concussions.
Sure.
I got a lot of concussions. I can tell you that shit don't work. That is not how you stop concussions. But if you think Brazilian jiu-jitsu is going to help you, do your thing. Or I would say even Aaron Rodgers doing shrooms to read defenses better. It seems like more like this is just what you want to do. And so you trick your mind into believing that it's going to help you.
If you, my favorite there is the BJJ. Doing BJJ to avoid injury is an astonishing thing. If you've ever done BJJ, afterwards it feels like you have been through a small car crash every single time you do it. I cannot imagine that would make you feel better about anything. However, I'll also say this: if it's Jaren Jackson, free copies of 2K is what we're aiming for. I think he knows. He's like, I'm Jaren Jackson. This is not like, he's not, like James Harden in his prime going, well, I'm probably not going to win a title, but I could probably get a 2K cover. Yeah. No. Jaren Jackson just wants some copies.
He just wants the copies.
Hook him up with the copies.
Hook the boy up.
By the way, we stand realistic goals, right? Like that's what we want. Like Jaren Jackson's like, I'm going to say 2K and they're going to send me 20 copies and my dudes are going to think I'm awesome for handing them out like candy.
Absolutely. Or this is him getting out in front of a Kyler Murray clause. Like maybe the Grizzlies have already expressed that he plays too much 2K and he needs to be in the film room more. And now he's getting out in front of it to be like, yo, this is making me better. So, there's no reason why you shouldn't pay me. Can you imagine, by the way? Okay, so there's 17 regular season games that you got to pay attention for in the NFL. Every single one of them's an event. Can you imagine trying to legislate someone's private time in the NBA when you consider their road schedule, how many games they play, and then you're like, you can't play 2K? I'm like, I'll kill you if you try to take my video. I will straight up try to murder you if you try to take this away from me. You asked me to get on a bus, get on a plane, take my large self, right? Travel with my 6'9" self. And travel all over the United States, okay? Which I'm paid very well for, but I get to keep this box with me that makes the happy basketball game happen. Yeah, there's one thing I would not let you take away is my 2K. Crawfish for Zion, absolutely. We can talk about it. 2K,
we can talk about that.
Non-negotiable. All right, 7-footers. You mentioned that's another good segue here. Wemby came out and said that he thinks the NBA is less physical than European basketball. Now, my favorite part about when foreign players whose first language is not English, American English, is that they are like way too blunt. And I feel like a lot of times they say things and they don't like realize that it's going to piss people off or people are going to take it the wrong way because they just say like what they mean in the words they can like find. So I don't feel like he was calling the NBA weak, but I feel like that's the way a lot of people took it. So what is your reaction to Wemby feeling like, at his very, very frail, thin self, that the NBA is less physical than Europe basketball? I think a couple of years ago, I would have said, yeah, that's ridiculous. There's absolutely no way it could be more physical than the NBA. But given what I've heard from certain players, Nikola Jokic being the most prominent of those, about the European experience, my answer would go to maybe he's got a point, because only because there are you'll get different calls and you will face different styles within Europe itself. And especially like when somebody goes, hey, that's a tough crowd, right? Talking about, I can't remember where he was talking about. It might've been
might have been like or like it might have been the Warriors or something. But Jokic goes, brother, I played in Serbia. And I'm like, well, that's the point. Like, if you just come back to me and you go, yeah, I played in Serbia or I played in Slovenia, right? I played against Russian professionals. I'm like, it may not be better basketball, but you can't tell me those elbows aren't as sharp. And some places they might not call them. So I don't know anymore. And I really don't, because
Wow. Okay.
I know it's like the most old head thing in the world to go, well, they don't play like they did in the 80s. You're like, well, yeah, that's because you can't carry a crowbar on the court anymore. Right?
Days,
like,
man.
Right. Bill Laimbeer would be obsolete in today's league. It just would not happen. Right.
Right.
We don't even have Bruce Bowens anymore. Like that's the style of the NBA. And I don't think, by the way, that's a function of not being as tough. I think that's because everyone's faster now. Everyone's so much faster that you just can't be a goon. You can have goon-like tendencies, but you can't just sit there anymore. So I think he might, by his own experience, obviously, he feels like he's got enough to say this. He might be in for a surprise, but if he's not, I would not be shocked given what I've seen coming out of Europe in terms of environments, in terms of the different kinds of calls that refs let people get away with. It can be more violent. Like from the limited amount I've seen of European basketball and the way they play, there are spots where I think it can be just as rough or worse.
I'm not saying European basketball is weak. I'm not saying it's soft. I'm not saying that in every scenario, U.S. basketball is tougher. But to your point about the game having changed and us being old heads, and we remember a different style of basketball that was way more physical. Yeah. I feel like the change is in part prompted by European basketball, like in this merging of how the game is going to be played kind of globally as the brand continues to grow and become more of a global game. So in my mind, there's no way that European basketball could be more physical at this point, because our style here has always been more physical. And it's higher scoring. To your point, players are faster. But I just think this is a rookie who hasn't seen the real thing yet, not realizing he hasn't seen the real thing yet, right? This reminds me of like in the NFL when, rookies get drafted and they go to rookie minicamp. And then at a rookie minicamp, they're like, oh, it doesn't even seem that hard. Or like after OTAs or preseason, they're like, oh, NFL isn't that crazy. And then the real games start.
Let's see the money game.
Yeah. When the money's on the line, I think Wemby is going to be changing his tune, because trust me, every team, every player that sees him, he is going to have such a target on his back. He has been called the greatest prospect since LeBron James. I don't think he understands what kind of smoke is going to come with that and he's going to be so unready for it. Like he won't realize that the veterans, the guys who don't have anything to lose except getting on highlights to show that you're weak or show that you're not what you are, cracked up to be, which is always what I was amazed about with LeBron James. I always see the video of like Carlos Boozer and Darius Miles being like, oh yeah, we got better players on our team. And like, all the hoopla that was around him and him still coming in and dominating like that is like a next level thing. I don't think Wemby is ready for the smoke. And I don't think he understands the smoke that he is brewing and that he is cooking up and now helping to even add to that fire.
I'm sure that's true, but I just keep hearing Nikola Jokic in my head, the current NBA champion, saying, brother, I played in Serbia. It's haunting me. I'm not saying I totally disagree with you. I'm just saying there's this little spot in the back of my mind that says we're playing a different game now, and maybe I've misjudged this. On the other hand, if anyone could go ahead and talk this kind of smack ahead of his debut based on the footage I've seen of Wembanyama, it's him. He can go ahead and do that. Yeah.
He can do it. You're okay with it?
My confidence is high, Hawk. I feel very good that this person is a unique talent. Okay. You go, oh, he's very thin. Have you seen how much talent he has packed into that thin body? Yeah, he's unreal, man.
He is so tall. He is a freak. I would say on the Jokic point, Jokic is a different breed. I mean, I think 100%. We gotta like. I think he looks regular to people, but he is not. He is not regular in his physicality. He is not regular in his abilities. He is not regular in his processing, and he is not regular in his toughness. Like that's the thing that stuck out to Jokic with me, is because like when I look at especially basketball players, like skilled players who are also tough and like from a mentality standpoint, Jokic doesn't back down from anybody. If you want a problem,
No.
Jokic says no problem. And like, it does not matter where you're from. It doesn't matter if you're playing here, Serbia, Russia, or wherever. And I think those things actually are what make Jokic very unique. You see his brothers, we see him all knuckle up and go at like the Morris twins and all of that. Like, you just know, like, okay, this is a dude who is not scared of anything. And so I think wherever Jokic plays, to your point about physicality, he wants all that smoke. I don't know if Wemby does. That's the difference. I think Wemby is super talented. I just don't want him, writing checks that his ass can't cash.
Well, he's going to have a test from his own bench because Greg Popovich is going to be his coach. So
True that. He got the pop meister. All right, we're going to keep talking some basketball. And we're going to jump into some NFL as well right after a quick break. All right, Spence, over the weekend, Steph Curry won his first celebrity golf tournament, the American Century Tournament. They had clips of him hitting hole-in-ones. He's walking down the golf course. He grabs a basketball, casually throws it all over his head, probably from like 50 feet out, and almost sinks it nothing but net, and is mad when he doesn't do it. And it prompted everyone on social media to say that Steph Curry's hand-eye coordination is something that should be studied in a lab. Number one, do you think Steph is the best athlete golfer? And number two, what do you make of athletes and like this rare ability sometimes to be great at everything?
Historically speaking, that can't be true. He cannot be the best athlete golfer because that would be Al Del Greco, former kicker for the Houston Oilers and Tennessee.
No idea who that is.
Oh, old kicker who actually played pro-ams and was really, really good. Like, I believe could have competed as a golfer. Shouts out to the legend Al Del Greco, master of the football pro-am.
Kickers don't count though.
Come on.
Not because they're not athletes, but literally in the NFL, like, players get pissed off because the entire NFL practice, whether you're in training camp, they have pitching wedges, putters, and the entire practice, they just work on their short game, like from the green, like literally all day. So this is what they do their entire careers as kickers, is they kick one period per practice. And the rest of the time is just spent golfing. So if you imagine like you playing all off season, but then playing all in season, that's why I say it doesn't count, because he's logging hours probably more than most golfers are.
Yeah, that's work smarter, not work harder. I'm totally fine with that. You can play football and go out and get hit, or you could have been a kicker hawk, right? Like,
that's
look
my
at that,
problem.
Right? That's an us problem, right? They figured it out. We didn't.
I blame the people I grew up with, Spencer.
Yeah, that's it. Blame you need a new crew who can encourage you to be a golfer, right? Currently is probably has the best options to do that. He's the only one who made a whole show about golf, right? He was one of the producers and stars of Holy Moly on ABC with Joe Tessitore and Rob Riggle. So yeah, he's probably, if you look at him, hand-eye coordination, the list of things I think Steph Curry could be amazing at just off the rip is fascinating to me. Like, I do think he would be one of the best cornhole players ever. I think he's probably never lost a game of beer pong, right? I don't think that's ever happened. I cannot imagine that man playing tennis, like moving laterally. He would be nuts playing tennis. An excellent striker. He's too tall to be midfield, right?
Yeah.
But I think he could be a good striker in soccer. The transfer of skills that he's got indicates to me that, like hockey, give him a week, I think he'd be pretty competent. I'm not speaking to the contact element of that, and no one should, because it's hockey.
Way.
No, but the hand-eye coordination translates across so many different things that I just want to test him. I don't want to put him in a lab. I just want to be like, here, try this.
No, I agree. Our producer said he'd probably be a fantastic volleyball player, which is also a fact. He probably can hit a baseball really well. To your point, there's like certain like skills, especially when you're elite athletes, that are transferable. Hand-eye coordination is probably one of the best ones. The ones we're typically used to are like speed, right? Like, if you're fast, there's a way that translates everywhere. And there are athletes I always felt like could have been like played certain sports. Like Russell Westbrook, to me, feels like a football player because of how intense and like fast he moves constantly. And he's also very tough. Like, toughness is, it's not something you can develop, at least on the NFL level. And I think someone like Russell Westbrook would have the toughness to play football. I don't think most NBA players would. But when I think of Steph Curry, like, to your point about his hand-eye coordination, I played with AJ Green And that was like AJ Green's thing was, I don't think people
Yeah.
realize how crazy his hand-eye coordination. He would do this thing where he would run like long routes. And, if I'm running a post route and it's a
Mm-hmm.
40, 35, 45-yard pass, the ball's in the air, I'm running and I'm tracking it, which takes a hand-eye coordination, right? Like you have to see the ball and being able to see it all the way into your hands with everything else going on. AJ would do this crazy thing where the ball would be in the air and he wouldn't look at it the whole time. He would look up, see the ball, look forward and run to a spot, and at the last minute look back up and catch it, which is like, I can't even explain to you how ridiculous that is. And he would do it routinely, and it wasn't like a trick. It was just his mind could like just process where his hand and the eyes and like distance so quickly. He could have probably played in the NBA too. I feel like people always ask that question of like, what NFL player do you think could play? And they always say like people that are way too like swole. Tony Gonzalez could never play in the NBA. He was too swole. Myles Garrett, great athlete, way too swole. AJ Green is a skinny dude, and he could shoot. We would play this shooting game at like lunch, and it was called 50. And basically, you had to hit as many of them in a row. He could go, I'm not kidding, like 30 shots from three and make every one. Or he'd be like, I'm going to bank all day. And he would just bank it from anywhere, any place. And obviously the athletic ability. But it's like that kind of a touch and that kind of hand-eye coordination is what you need in the game of basketball. And a lot of most NFL athletes just don't have it.
Yeah, the only solace that you can take as a normal person when thinking about how good AJ Green or Steph Curry is at these kind of things is this: if they play golf, they're miserable because golf generates misery. Because if they shoot a 64, a 63 was right there. And if you're the kind of perfectionist that I know plays these kind of games and takes them very seriously, they'll go back and go, that 63 feels good, but it doesn't feel as bad as that one missed putt I had on 11. They'll remember that. And that's why golf's a perfect misery machine. The people who play it for a living sometimes hate it publicly and on camera.
Yeah, it's not just about beating people. It's about beating your best score. It's about doing the best you possibly can. And to your point, it's never good enough. And it torments not only regular people, even the most elite athletes. Steph Curry is an elite athlete, and I think we sometimes get shocked to see him in that light. He has a documentary coming out. I can't wait to watch it because I think it's going to probably give us a little bit more of a peek behind the curtain. And I think we just kind of view Steph as like this, things just happen for him, and we know he's an underdog, and we know he's super skinny, but he really is a killer. And I think we like to see athletes that we don't typically have in that light show that side of it. It reminds me of Patrick Mahomes and the quarterback docu-series where it's like,
I just started watching that.
Man, it is good because I'm like, it just shows you Patrick Mahomes has a little shit I'm saying. And I think that's, you just don't see him. You see the smiles, you see the soft spoken and always showing love, but to see him like talking crap to Max Crosby and you know what I'm saying, like refusing to come out of games, I think it's showing a little bit of a fire. So have you just started watching it? What is your ultimate takeaway so far?
My takeaways are that all quarterbacks are nerds. They're just big old nerds. Like they have to really enjoy that kind of detail work. Like it's detail work. Like that's like talking about, even Mahomes' taunts are kind of nerdy because the big taunt that he does is, y'all didn't think I had tape, right? Y'all didn't think I watched film, right? Like I got film. That's basically saying you didn't think I would study for this test. I did. Right? He does a fair amount of smack talk that's based on skill, but a lot of it is based on, you didn't think I would work this hard? You didn't think I would study? Huh? Like that's a Lisa Simpson taunt. I love it. Also, it made me realize that like Kirk Cousins is not my dude. I naturally just sort of don't vibe with Kirk Cousins at all. And I watched this probably because I'm a bad person. That's probably like, if I want to go ahead and be really like front street about this, it's probably because I'm like, look at that guy. He's got everything taken care of. But then I watch this whole thing and like, he's quoting Margaret Thatcher and day one of the thing. He's, he's like, oh, that's my bad. I guess I'm just a boring guy. And I'm like, yeah, he's just a boring guy. I don't vibe with him at all. Like I want to give him credit, be like, he seems like a nice guy. He seems like a good dad. I would never, ever want to hang out with him. The one
Never.
critique I have is that I would want more of the Mariota story because it's the other side of this, right? I don't think we quite get enough of the Marcus Mariota because that's the reality for a lot of quarterbacks in the league. That
What do you mean the other side?
That you see Kirk Cousins and Patrick Mahomes, who by different measures are both very successful. Cousins has maintained a starting job in the league for a long time. He got a very large contract. Everything's going pretty well for him. He's got an organization that has lined up behind him to support him. Mahomes, obviously, brilliant, a talent among talents. I've loved him since he was at Texas Tech because he was just that singular. He's won Super Bowls, multiple Super Bowls.
Yep.
Although he's quick to point, he's like, well, I played in 4 Super Bowls, 1, 2, lost 2, like what, and he seems like kind of like, oh, if I'd won 1 out of 4, do you know how arrogant I would be? And he's like, oh, I don't know. But like that's not the reality for a lot of quarterbacks. A lot of quarterbacks in the league are, to return to a theme, journeymen. They're guys who are going to go back and forth, and their lives are not going to be one straight line of successes, from one team to the next. You're going to look like Mariota's career. You're going to, live in a house that you never fully unpack because by the time you do, it's time to move to the next team. I would have liked a little more of that. It's fascinating. It's an inside look that, you're not going to get many other places, but I wanted a little more of the harder story because I don't know. I like that.
Yeah, I think that needs its own series, just straight journeyman. Like maybe we could do it here at Meadowlark Media. We just give you all the mediocrity that Spencer is craving.
The Chase Daniel story. I want the Chase Daniel story.
Chase Daniel, Josh Johnson, and Josh McCown after he gets called back from being a quarterback coach to playing in the NFL and holding a clipboard. Yep. That's the docuseries you're trying to watch. I do feel like it was a little. I would rather watch Mahomes and 2 other like big time quarterbacks.
Yeah.
Because I get what they're trying to do. And it's like Mahomes here, top of the mountain, to your point. Kirk Cousins, the quintessential middle of the pack quarterback. He's good. He's not like great, but he's good. Not bad. He's good. He's like the 15th best quarterback every year. Yeah. Right. And then there's Mariota, more like, to your point, the struggling. I want to see like the contrast of greatness. I want to see Mahomes, Josh Allen, and like Lamar Jackson or Jalen Hurts or somebody that's like, these guys are people that we are only judging by if they win the Super Bowl or not. And they don't win the Super Bowl, it's not a success. Nobody's saying that about Mariota. Nobody's saying that about Kirk Cousins. Nobody cares.
Yeah, nobody's saying that about Kirk Cousins. Let's reiterate that. No, nobody's like, why didn't Kirk Cousins win a Super Bowl? It's when you see him in the playoffs, it's pretty obvious, for better or worse. That
Kirk Cousins already won.
He already won. See that paycheck? Kirk Cousins.
His Super Bowl is every time he's a free agent, and he has as many equivalent Super Bowl wins as Patrick Mahomes, because every time contracts come up, Kirk Cousins wins. He's undefeated. He's the Tom Brady of NFL contracts.
Every time he goes to the ATM, that's the Super Bowl, baby. Gets that receipt and just goes, day feels a little bit better, doesn't it?
All right, let's get back into some more NFL talk after a quick break. Spencer, veteran NFL free agent wide receiver DeAndre Hopkins just signed somewhat unexpectedly with the Tennessee Titans. Did you see this move coming? Do you think this move makes sense?
I think putting Hopkins on your team would always make sense.
At 31?
At 31.
Okay.
We're not doing this for a long time. We're doing it for a good time. I think that's what you have to take as your approach to DeAndre Hopkins. His best days are probably behind him, but he still commands respect from a defense. So I think it's a good signing. Does it really sort of change the calculus for the Titans? Do you go, oh man, that's a Super Bowl contender? I don't know about that. But does it make them more competitive? Absolutely. And to me, when you talk about skill positions, and we can have this discussion about running backs later, how many long-term players do you have at skill positions? Like, what do we mean when we talk about long-term anymore in terms of skill positions? Because I think you've seen the market get more volatile for not just running backs, but for everyone. If you have a big deal, you go and take it. You're not going to stay and wait for your potential in the market to wither. Like I'm thinking of Tyreek Hill here. When you go, well, would you pay that money for Tyreek Hill? Well, yeah, you would, because he's that much of a threat. Can you replace Tyreek Hill? Chiefs seem to be fine. They did just fine without him. I think skill players across the board, we only focus on running backs, but I think skill players across the board in the NFL are being marginalized in the market because I think there are ways to scheme around them even more. This is like spreadsheet math. You're just leaning harder and harder on the valuation of the quarterback and everything you can't replace against those which you can sort of replace, or at least live with the solutions. This is me saying, like, this is just GM math getting like more and more evident in terms of how teams are built.
Yeah, I think it's like it's so many things. Well, number one, I think the DeAndre Hopkins signing makes sense. If you think of like all the players that were involved, it was the Titans, there was rumblings of the Chiefs, there was obviously conversations going on with the Patriots. I never thought he was going to the Patriots. There's a Drake line in a song, I forget the name of the song, but where he says, "I acted like I put that shit behind me, but I lied." I feel like that was the case with DeAndre Hopkins and Coach O'Brien. Like, I think he was trying to drive prices up, but there was no way I thought he was going to go play with Coach O'Brien after the way that things ended in Houston. So that's number one. So that didn't make sense. And also the culture just didn't make sense. As a 31-year-old free agent, I also signed with the Patriots. And I can promise you, at that stage of your career, it's a tough place to go into, right? Because it is run like the military. It is like, no talking. They don't even say hi to you in the hallway. Like, you walk by a coach, they won't even say what's up to you in a 20-yard hallway, just you two. They would just look at you and walk right by you, right? And that, not that it hurts your feelings, but it's like I don't want to say it's disrespect, but it's just a different environment. They make the environment hard so that in the games and the playoffs, it's easy. And that's why they have won traditionally so much with their years with Tom Brady. So I knew he wasn't going to the Patriots, I felt like. And when you're that age of receiver, people were like, oh, what are the things he's considering? Well, I would say number one was money. Okay. Number two is, where do I have the ability to win? Number three is money. Number four is, where do I fit? And then number five, which is probably the most important thing, it's money. Because you don't have many paydays left after you're the age of 30 as a wide receiver. To your point, it does not matter how good you are. People are now trying to get out the game because they don't want to be the one overpaying a 31, a 32, a 33-year-old wide receiver who can't separate anymore. And I'm not saying DeAndre Hopkins is there, and he might not be there for another 5 years, but it is just a game of GMs and organizations to say, I don't want to be the one left holding the way too expensive bag. So DeAndre Hopkins had to go where he could get the most money. I think that was the Tennessee Titans. I think he had to go where he could win. Number one was the Chiefs, but they couldn't pay him money, which is the most important thing. So that's why that couldn't happen. And number three was fit. And he knows Vrabel. He knows their OC from their time in Houston. It's a little more relaxing in that environment, especially at his age and the things that he does on social media. I think he has like 1 million TikTok followers. I know his social media team. All that would have been dead in New England. So I think all that makes sense. From a football perspective, I also think it makes sense for the Tennessee Titans, right? Because to your point, a lot of people aren't going to want to pay an older receiver that may or may not still be a number one. I think he's still a number one, but regardless, the threat of him and even where he's at in his age, I think the Tennessee Titans even overestimated their own abilities without an outside receiver help. So you can talk all the, hey, do specialists make sense? Do running backs? But Derrick Henry is the foundation of that offense. And without a big-time threat outside for Tannehill, it completely washed out the Tennessee Titans. I think they're going to have a bounce-back year, and I actually have them winning the division over the Jacksonville Jaguars because now they got control. Now it's like, there is a pass threat to mix with Derrick Henry. And now Tannehill isn't going to look like he turned back into a pumpkin after midnight because now he has some threats all over the field, which is what you're kind of, trying to strike lightning in a bottle to have a Super Bowl chance if you don't have a top 5 quarterback? Because ultimately, you need a top 5 quarterback to win a Super Bowl, unless all the pieces can stack up.
Yeah. Also, like, I think his production has a lot to do with whether Treylon Burks really comes on in year 2. Like that's we need a defense. We need a defense that's distracted, and we need to make sure that you're one-on-one, and that we can't just focus on you. Because if he can't separate anymore, he's not going to be the kind of guy who defenses become irrelevant at the point of attack. When you have somebody who is like Hopkins at his peak, he is not. So he needs somebody to balance that. Treylon Burks, if he's recovered from turf toe, if he's feeling good, Treylon Burks is mean, and he is learning. I mean, that is a large and extremely impressive dude. The kind of dude who off play action, Tannehill could look like an all-pro. He can look like a top 5 guy if that run game is going and he's throwing to the right guy. So, that can happen. But when you use the word can, and it's not that will,
that's tough.
Listen, man, it's tough if you don't have the widget. We were talking about Mahomes. It's so easy to just go, magic will happen here. Yeah. Like, I could just put this dude here and he will make something happen. If I have a Lamar Jackson, I can be like, well, the play broke down. That's fine. He'll make something happen. You don't do that with Tannehill. Yeah.
So is Tannehill more Kirk Cousins or Mariota?
Kirk Cousins. He's more Kirk Cousins. And that's no shade to either of them. It really isn't. It's a team sport, and that's somebody who in particular needs the entire team to fire on all cylinders for him to be super successful. I think he is like go back macro, like especially for me, a college guy, if you go like, hey man, that wide receiver is going to be an impressive quarterback. Remember, that's where he's coming from, right? He has been more successful than he has ever possibly dreamed of being in the NFL. And certainly for anybody who saw him coming out and go, hey, that's a great athlete, maybe he can play quarterback. He has gone so much farther than I think anyone's anticipated. That still doesn't mean he is that dude without insurance. He's a quarterback who needs a lot of insurance.
Yeah. What about Dak Prescott? Because Dak Prescott came out and said he's going to have less interceptions than 10 this year, and you could take that to the bank. And I love OTAs because this is like the time when NFL players and we all make declarations that inevitably won't go the way we ever said they're going to go. But it gets the articles going. It gets people talking. So what is your take on Dak Prescott? Where does he fit? Does he fit in the Mahomes-esque docu-series where we're going to go all elite quarterbacks, or is he going to be in the Kirk Cousins Tannehill docu-series?
Can I slot him between? I think he's really.
I don't think that's legal. I think we have 3 buckets.
No, we have 3 buckets.
Kirk Cousins and Tannehill. We need a third. We have the Mahomes and Josh Allen. We need a third, and then we have the Mariota and who's another starting quarterback, probably in the bottom tier. That the Baker Mayfield, I would say. Baker Mayfield, Mariota. We need a third. Those are the 3 docuseries that Meadowlark is producing. Which one is Dak Prescott going into?
This is why I love the NFL, because you're going to do like Baker Mayfield, who was nails in college and he's incredible. And they put him in the NFL bucket and they're like, trash. That man is garbage. You're like, that's an amazing athlete. And they're like, can't hang.
I didn't say he was garbage. I just said he's in the Mariota. Mariota was also great. Did Mariota win a Heisman?
Mariota won a Heisman. Mariota, like go back and look at his Heisman season. I think he threw for like 40, or he counted for like 49 TDs by himself.
Yeah,
like
he was
50
legit
TDs by himself. He was nuts. So if I have to put him in that tier, I don't want to put him in the Kirk Cousins tier. I'd have to put him top tier, and I will blame his shortcomings on the Dallas Cowboys as an organization and not on him. Yeah, because Dak is an incredible athlete. He's a great quarterback. I just think he's probably in the wrong place for greatness.
Man, so you think that he's just not going to happen? It's not going to happen for Dak Prescott at the Cowboys. And I'm not talking about Super Bowl. Do you think that they get over the hump eventually with Dak Prescott in Dallas as their quarterback? Because it's hard to play in Dallas. You get, like, obviously every year you don't win a Super Bowl, you have everyone who hates you talking trash. You have your own fans and your own organization feeling like it was a missed opportunity. You think it's more organization than it is Dak Prescott and his abilities?
I think it's all organization. Like, I think for Patrick Mahomes, it's organization.
Like, why is it organization for Patrick Mahomes? Because they hadn't won.
Well, one,
really
you have
prior to him being there.
You have a coach. You have a coach and a play caller who can make almost any quarterback at minimum efficient. And then At good,
Not
successful,
wrong.
and then at great, you will be Patrick Mahomes. All right. There were people who, when Mahomes came into the league, did not believe he was ever capable of performing within the strictures of a pro offense. They thought he was a cowboy, the character, not the franchise type. They thought that he was, they didn't like his form. They thought he was reckless, and they thought he was in part a system quarterback, a talented one. I don't think there was anybody out there who thought he was Graham Harrell. I don't think there was anybody out there who thought he was, Sonny Cumbie. I think they thought that's an air raid quarterback with a giant arm who's going to need years of discipline and curing before he becomes a professional prospect. Andy Reid didn't. And Andy Reid also keeps finding talent. If you want to know like what Andy Reid and that organization does better, they always get these guys who I'm like, who let them have him? Even their misses are impressive. Like Clyde Edwards-Helaire, I know he didn't exactly work out. That is a read that I still think was a great read in the draft because he was a 3-tool guy. He did everything well, and he was tough. And that to me, like, even his misses are good. So when I say that, like, even Mahomes needs that. Mahomes has had great generational talent around him. Travis, like, and if you go like who? Travis Kelce. Like that's been his security blanket. And he has had the best mind in football working with him to constantly refresh what they do. You're never sure what they're going to put on you, and they have the skills to put that in there. Was that a convincing enough argument that organization matters, even for Mahomes?
We got like 30 seconds left. Is Andy Reid, does he retire a better coach than Bill Belichick?
No. And I say that because they do entirely different things. I really do. Okay. I think they do entirely different things. And I think that what Belichick's done is, as an organization, more impressive from top to bottom. Is he a better offensive guy? Well, yeah, but like Belichick isn't terrible on that front, right? I don't think I will say this, by the way. Go ahead.
If he wins 4 more Super Bowls with Patrick Mahomes.
Oh, well, then it's a matter of taste. Which one do you like watching more? That's ultimately what it comes down to. I would say, yeah, but that's also because I think it's cooler to watch them. Like watching the Patriots is like watching a funeral home. It makes money. It's successful, but ultimately, is it real thrilling? No, it's brutal.
Yeah, it's. I mean, Patrick Mahomes is a generational talent. Tom Brady is obviously the greatest quarterback ever. It's not crazy. It's not even close to crazy to think Patrick Mahomes is going to win the 4 Super Bowls. That's like, at the track he's going, that's actually the trajectory he's on, if not more. And at that stage, you have to remove Patrick Mahomes and Tom Brady from the resumes. And then you look at the coaches. Andy Reid will at that point have had more success without his generational talent than Bill Belichick did without his.
And I don't think they're as different as maybe I thought they were when I started thinking about this. They're really, when you go in terms of what they do, track record, and their respective resumes, not as different as I thought they were.